Hi guys, I'm really excited to show you some great books that you might be interested in checking out. So let's get started. The first book that I'm going to tell you about is called Heist Society by Allie Carter. And this is a really interesting book. I loved the whole series of books. There's actually 3 in the series. I really wish that she would write some more. But let me tell you a little bit about this book. Kat is a born thief. When Katerina Bishop was 3 years old, her parents took her to the Louvre to case it. For her 7th birthday, Katerina and her uncle Eddie traveled to Austria to steal the crown jewels. When Kat turned 15, she planned a con of her own, scamming her way into the best boarding school in the country, determined to leave the family business behind. Unfortunately, leaving the life proves harder than she expected. Ever gotten blamed for something that you didn't do and had to suffer the consequences of that thing anyway? Welcome to the incident of the Heist Society. After getting framed for putting the headmaster's car in the fountain, like literally disassembling that car and then putting it in the fountain, she gets kicked out of her uber cool private school called Colgan School. Katerina Bishop has a message waiting for her when that happens. It says, he's got to give them back. What's going on here? The he refers to Kat's dad. The them is an assortment of stolen paintings, and the person that must give them back is the notorious crime boss, Arturo Tissoni. So it looks like Kat isn't the only one that's getting framed around here. Kat tries to convince Tissoni that her father didn't steal the paintings, but he really doesn't care. And her father is pretty much the most famous and best cat burglar in the world. So he basically tells her that if she wants to see her father again, then she has to steal the paintings. But what she discovers is that the paintings were stolen by a mysterious thief known as Vasili Romani, which, contrary to what you might think, is not an Italian moisturizer. The plot really starts to thicken here, and she discovers that those paintings don't really belong to Tissoni. So will she be able to find the paintings, and who will she give them back to? Will she save her father? Find out in Heist Society by Allie Carter. The next book that I have to tell you about is called The Testing by Joelle Carbonell. Oh my God. This book is amazing. So you think the Divergent and Hunger Games are like the best dystopias out there? Well, you have another thing coming, because The Testing is amazing. Whereas I feel like sometimes though the dystopias kind of are they're very predictable. Nothing in this book is predictable. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So the Seven Stages War is pretty much a charred wasteland, and that's all that's left in this society. The future belongs to the next generation of a chosen few who are supposed to rebuild it. But to enter this group of people that basically make all the decisions in the world, you have to pass the testing. Their one chance at a college education and a rewarding career. This is the first book in a trilogy, so it's completely done, so you don't have to worry about waiting for the book to be out, and we have them all in the library. The Testing is at first glance kind of a Frankenstein monster-like amalgamation of many popular YA dystopias. So there's a post-war fractured colony set up. The annual selection process is entirely reminiscent of The Hunger Games and The Giver. So many of you read that last year. Then there's this busted shell of a civilization, Chicago, which is very much like Veronica Ross Divergent, or Scott Westerfeld's The Ugly series, which I recommend as well. Then there's this feisty first-person heroine, and there's violence and brutality. And of course, there's a love interest, but it's a very small part of the book. And while this all sounds rather familiar and very formulaic, I'm very happy to report that the testing manages to distinguish itself from this pack. When bad things could happen, they happen. It's not like, oh, bad things happen, but everybody lives. No, there's like serious consequences. There's death in this book. There are people. I mean, imagine a test that when you took it, you could die. And in fact, one character in particular that I'm remembering actually does die. She actually commits suicide in this book, and it is heartbreaking. So if you really want a book that you can sink your teeth into, then check this book out. So the next book that I want to tell you about is called A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. Now, Jason Reynolds is a seriously hot author right now. Not only does he write books that are traditional narrative, so like paragraphs and chapters and stuff like that, he also writes books like this, which are in prose. So they're written in poetry. But I have to tell you that I started reading this book, and I actually listened to it. And I didn't realize that it was poetry. It just read so much like a book. And in fact, if you sat down and read this book, it might take you like 45 minutes to read the whole thing. It stuck with me a lot. So I want to tell you a little bit about it. A cannon, a strap, a piece, a biscuit, a burner, a heater, a chopper, a gat, a hammer, a tool, for rule. Or you can call it a gun. That's what 15-year-old Will has shoved in the back of the waistband of his jeans. See, his brother Sean was just murdered. And Will knows the rules. No crying, no snitching, revenge. That's where Will's headed now, with the gun shoved in the back waistband of his jeans. The gun that was his brother's gun. He gets on the elevator, 7th floor, stoked. He knows who he's after. Or does he? As the elevator stops on the 6th floor, on comes Buck. Buck, who Will finds out is who gave Sean the gun before Will took the gun. Buck tells Will to check that the gun is even loaded. And that's when Will sees that one bullet is missing. And the only one who could have fired Sean's gun was Sean. Huh? Will didn't know that Sean had actually used the gun. Bigger, huh? Buck is dead. But Buck's on the elevator. Just as Will is trying to think this through, the door to the next floor opens. A teenage girl gets on, waves away the smoke coming from dead Buck's cigarette. Will doesn't know her, but she knew him. Knew when they were 8. And stray bullets had cut through the playground, and Will had tried to cover her, but she was hit anyway. And so what she wants to know on that 5th floor elevator stop is, what if Will with the gun shoved in the back of his waistband jeans, misses? This book is not only heart-wrenching, it also really makes you think about the reactions and gangs and violence and guns that society has deemed appropriate. And Jason Reynolds does a really good job of creating books that are about topics that are happening now and are happening in kids' lives. So if you really liked The Hate U Give or The Crossover, you might really enjoy this book. The next book is actually a series of books. And I'm pretty excited about this series of books because they're all by super popular YA authors. So Mary Lou wrote the Legend series. Leah Bardugo, who is the Wonder Woman right here, she actually wrote a series called, that I'm blanking on. I'll think of it in a moment. And Sarah J. Maas, who wrote the Throne of Glass series. And we also have Matt De La Pena, who actually won the Newbery Award. Pretty cool. And they all write books that are relevant to kids' lives. And so I really like that about them. And so, of course, these are superheroes, but they're reimagining of those tales. So Catwoman starts with, which is coming out, just came out a few months ago. When the bat's away, the cat will play. It's time to see how many lives a cat really has. 2 years after escaping Gotham's slums, Selina Kyle returns as the mysterious and wealthy Holly Voorhees. She quickly discovers that Batman is on a vital mission. Batwing is left to hold back the tide of notorious criminals. Gotham City is ripe for the taking. Meanwhile, Luke Fox wants to prove that he has what it takes to help people. In his role as Batwing, he targets a new thief on the prowl who seems cleverer than most. She has teamed up with Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and together they are wreaking havoc. That's Catwoman by Sarah J. Maas. Batman Nightwalker by Marie Lu is pretty cool. And there's kind of an interesting story about this one. Sarah J. Maas actually wanted to write the Batman book. And so she went to her publisher and she whined and she really wanted it. And Marie Lu just said, no, I'm going to write it. So it's kind of interesting how there's kind of real people behind these books and what they wanted to write. So Batman Nightwalker. Before he was Batman, he was Bruce Wayne. A reckless boy willing to break the rules for a girl who may be his worst enemy. The Nightwalkers are terrorizing Gotham City. Bruce Wayne is next on their list. The city's elite are being taken out, one by one, as their mansion security systems turn against them, trapping them like prey. Meanwhile, Bruce is about to become 18 and inherit his family's fortune, not to mention the keys to Wayne Industries and all the tech gadgetry that he loves. But on the way home from his birthday party, he makes an impulsive choice and is sentenced to community service at Arkham. That is Batman Nightwalker. Lastly, we have Wonder Woman Warbringer, which I loved and reminded me a little bit of the Wonder Woman movie that came out a few years ago. And it does actually take place with Diana, the Princess of the Amazons. She will become one of the world's greatest heroes, Wonder Woman. But first, she is Diana, Princess of the Amazons, and her fight is just beginning. Diana longs to prove herself to her legendary warrior sisters. But when the opportunity finally comes, she throws away her chance at glory and breaks Amazon law, risking exile to save a mere mortal. Even worse, Alia Carolus is no ordinary girl. And with this single brave act, Diana may have doomed the entire world. That is Wonder Woman Warbringer. Check out any of those titles. Superman, I can't tell you about yet because it doesn't come out until January. And we will have that book in the library. I have to say that I'm quite the fan of Superman, so I'm quite excited about that book. The next book is a graphic novel series that I read on the way to Teen Book Festival last year. And it reminds me of Brave and Smile, which are pretty popular right now with kids. But what I really like about it is it brings in the kid who is not conforming to what all the other kids do. And so that's what I really like about it. So what's this book about? This is a unique graphic novel. I've been really excited about new graphic novels that have been coming out in the last year. And if you are a fan of Smile, like I said, then you will just love Witch Boy. The artwork in the novel is just enchanting. The book is actually set in a modern day forest settlement. So it's set right in the forest, but there's kind of a city that's kind of next to it. And it's where girls in the society become witches and boys learn how to shapeshift. And they can't, if you're a boy, you can't become a witch. If you're a girl, you can't become a shapeshifter. Our main character is named Aster, and he's a boy who should be focused on shapeshifting, but he isn't interested in shapeshifting at all. Of course. What's he interested in? He's interested in witchery. And his family is so embarrassed. And they go as far as to discipline him for actually sneaking a peek and like kind of shadowing what's going on with the girls learning their witchery. The problem is that a frightening creature has actually kidnapped a young shapeshifter that had just learned how to shapeshift. And Aster's pretty sure that he can help using some of the witchery that he has discovered. So he is in a dilemma. Does he tell his family and actually maybe save the day? Or does he keep silent and possibly his cousin dies? So a huge dilemma. This is actually the start of a series. The second book is actually out called Hidden Witch, and on the library we'll be getting that as well. So check it out. It's a great, great book. Fast read. This one is actually this year's Battle of the Books for grades 7 and 8, and it is called Graceling, and it is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. This is the story of Katza, who is a Grace, and that is demonstrated at a very young age. She actually has a grace for killing. Katza has been able to kill a man with her bare hands since she was 8 years old. She's a Graceling, one of the rare people in a land born with extreme skill. This makes her a perfect tool for her uncle, King Randa. A niece to the king, she should live the life of luxury. But Grace as she is with killing, she is forced to work as the king's thug. But Katza chafes at the way she is being used, and even more to the injustices that she sees around her. So she actually forms a rebel group to try to overthrow the king. But at the same time, she meets Prince Po, who also has a grace to match hers. When she first meets Prince Po, graced with combat skills, Katza has no hint of how her life is about to change. She never expects to become Po's friend. She never expects to learn the truth about her own grace and about a horrible secret that lies hidden far, far away, a secret that could destroy all 7 kingdoms with words alone. This one is another graphic novel, and it is part of it's not actually by Kristen Cashore. Sorry about that. It's actually by Stevenson, Ellis, Walters, and Allen. And it is a fantastic graphic novel series. There are currently 9 books in the series, and they fly. They're really quite short, and you can just fly right through them. So this is another book that, like I said, would be part of Battle of the Books for grades 7 and 8. Lumberjanes jumps right into the action with 5 friends searching the woods for an old woman that they saw turn into a bear. It's actually set at this summer camp. The weirdness grows from there as they are attacked by 3-eyed wolves, a river monster, and hipster yetis. Though their friendships and skills they learned earning badges, they solve a series of riddles to discover the meaning of the message, "Beware the kitten Holly." The first volume collects the first 4 issues of the comic series, and they're really a lot of fun. There's 5 friends: April, Joe, Mal, Molly, and Ripley, who are all very different with distinct personalities. And I really liked that about this book because each one of the different characters really has a unique personality. The clothing that they wear, the size of their drawings, all of that. It's very unique, and it really gives you a sense of each character. And like Ripley loves animals and is about as hyper as a squirrel. So it's pretty funny to read her text. Molly is strong but silent, and she walks around with anagrams and a bow and arrow. And so you can kind of see her on the cover. And then Mal looks tough, but she hates the river thanks to the Discovery Channel. So there's all these little kind of pop culture kind of things that go on in it. And as you can see, the illustrations are just gorgeous. The first volume works to introduce the characters to a mystery in the woods surrounding their camp. I really loved all the 3-eyed creatures, not just the foxes, the river monster, and the chocolate-stealing eagle. I mean, who doesn't want to see a chocolate-stealing eagle? I mean, kind of cool. And then we have chipmunks that have this mysterious third eye. I mean, it's just a really fun book that I really think that you guys would just really like. So check that one out. And like I said, it's a graphic novel. This one is called The Crossroads by Chris Grabenstein. Now, you might be familiar with Chris. Chris also wrote the Lemoncello series. He's known for writing really funny books, and this is a kind of creepy book. It's horror, and there are ghosts and death and all that cool stuff that we just love to read in October, right? So you can even, in that picture, you can even see that there's kind of a face in there. And so this is about Zach and his dad and their new stepmom who have just moved back to the father's hometown, not knowing that the new house that they bought has a very dark history. 50 years ago, a crazed killer caused an accident at a nearby crossroads that took 40 innocent lives. He died when his car hit a tree in a fiery crash, and his spirit has inhabited the tree ever since. During a huge storm, lightning hits the tree, releasing the spirit, who decides his evil spree isn't over yet. And Zach is directly in his sights. It's an absorbing psychological thriller as well as a rip-roaring ghost story. Because it is Chris Grabenstein, it is going to have a little bit of that humor in there, which is always nice in a ghost story. Some of the reviews call it brief, fast-paced action chapters, tight plot, several murders, gotta love a murder, and a sympathetic main character keep things moving very quickly. So this isn't the type of book that you're going to get bored with. You're going to just kind of fly through it and really enjoy it. So we actually have 4 copies of this book in the library. So if you would like to check it out, please come in. The next book is another creepy one. It's called Deck Z, The Titanic by Chris Pauls and Matt Solomon. Already we have a cover that's kind of creepy. We have like this old-fashioned black and white picture, and we have this hand. And if you look at the hand, it's kind of has the skin peeling away. So this is historical fiction a little bit, but then it has a huge dose of horror. Imagine being trapped aboard the Titanic on an icy Atlantic with The Walking Dead. This fast-paced thriller reimagined historical events on the fateful Titanic voyage through the lens of zombie mayhem. In an attempt to keep a deadly plague from being weaponized by the Germans, scientist Theodore Weiss steals the only sample, destroys his notes, and flees, ultimately seeking refuge aboard the Titanic. He's tracked down by an agent of the German Empire, who inadvertently releases the plague, turns the passenger crew into ravenous monsters. Captain Edward Smith and his inner circle desperately try to create a weaponized zombie virus smuggled aboard with the 2,200 passengers sailing to New York. Faced with an exploding population of lumbering, flesh-hungry undead, Smith's team is forced into bloody hand-to-hand combat down the narrow halls of the huge steamer. In its few short days at sea, the majestic Titanic turns into a Victorian bloodbath, steaming at top speed towards a cold, blue, icy iceberg. A creepy, intense page-turner. Deck Z will thrill zombie fans and Titanic buffs alike. A pretty cool mashup. So if you like The Walking Dead, you just might enjoy this book. Our next book is another book by Jason Reynolds because I just love him. He's just such a great author. And this is really quite different than the other book that we talked about. This is actually not written in poetry. It's actually written novel-like. And it's called Ghost by Jason Reynolds. And the read-alikes are incorrect. I'll just say that. This is a sports book. So I'll have to change that. So it is about running. It's about track. Each of the books in the series. So we have Ghost, Patina, Sunny, and Lou, and they're all about track, but about so much more than track. Running. That's all Ghost, his real name, Castle Cranshaw, has ever known. The first time he truly ran, he was running for his life. Running ain't nothing I ever got to practice. It's just something I know how to do. But never for a track team. Nope, his game has always been ball. But when Ghost impulsively challenges an elite sprinter to a race and wins, the Olympic medalist track coach sees he has something, crazy natural talent. Thing is, Ghost has something else too. A lot of anger, and a past that he's trying to outrun. Ghost has a crazy natural talent, but no formal training. He has the potential to be the best sprinter in the city, but Ghost has been running for the wrong reasons. It all started with running away from his father, who, when Ghost was a very little boy, chased him and his mother through the apartment, then down the street, with a loaded gun, aiming to kill. Since then, Ghost has been the one causing problems, running away from them until he meets Coach. That is. And now he's determined to keep the other kids from the coach is actually trying to keep kids from blowing their chances like he did in the Olympics. So this is a really, just like Long Way Down, it's a relevant topic. This is topics that are going on. Kids who don't have the best home life, that don't have a perfect situation, and how they can overcome that situation. So each one of the books is fantastic read. So check them out. The next book is one of my favorite authors, which is Margaret Peterson Haddix. She has written so many books. I've seen her at Teen Book Festival multiple times, and that's Teen Book Festival. And she just has a way of just keeping you on the edge of your seat in books. Just keep you guessing. I never guess what she's going to talk about. I just don't. I never do. So this book was just the same, and it's part of a 2-book series, I think, so far. And she told me about it at Teen Book Festival, and so I'm going to tell you about it. How do you review a book that is so much better when the reader doesn't know anything about it? Very, very carefully. It's almost impossible to discuss this book under their skin without taking away some of the magic that you get from reading it the first time. But seriously, I've been mulling over this book since I read it. Just thinking about it and thinking about how I would feel, about how the characters would react, and what would I do, and how could I make the decisions that they have to face. All right, but I'm getting ahead of myself because we haven't actually talked about what the book's about. So Nick and Aaron are actually, twins, and their parents have been divorced for ages, like forever. Ever since the twins were really little. So Nick and Aaron are surprised when their mother suddenly announces that she's getting remarried. That's pretty normal. I mean, nothing weird about that, other than, they haven't done it for a while. They don't believe her when she says that their life won't change, because how could their life not change if they're getting a stepfather? So they'll have a stepdad. Nick and Aaron are shocked to learn that their new stepfather has children. Ones that neither he nor their own mother have ever mentioned. And they are downright baffled at their parents' insistence that the two sets of siblings never meet. Never. What? Why? So Nick and Aaron, of course, whenever you tell somebody that they can't do something, they're of course going to try to do it, right? I mean, come on now. I would do the same thing. So, but the truth is that the truth actually leads to more questions and really bizarre answers with far-reaching ramifications. So who are these kids? Why can't they meet them? They'll even be sharing the same house. Every other week when Nick and Aaron spend the week with their dad, the kids will be at the house with the twins' mom and stepdad. But their bedroom doors are always kept locked. And when the twins try to find out more, the grown-ups act like asking questions about these kids is putting everybody at risk. So I'm really sure that the next book is going to be just as amazing as this one. I've only read the first book so far, but just look at that cover. I mean, doesn't that just want to suck you in? At least it does. I mean, I think it's pretty epic, just saying. So if you liked Among the Hidden or any other of Margaret Peterson Haddock's books, then you will really like this book. And really, if you just like good books, you'll like this book. All right, so remember, check out a book. They don't bite much.